Welcome back to another episode of the Mountain West Insider Podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. And I know we just talked to Mason from Utah State last week, but we had to go back to the Aggies. We had to go back to Logan, Utah, because Jerrod, you are one of seven undefeated teams left in college basketball, sitting here at 9-0 right now. So I figured I got to get you back on the podcast, man. How you doing?
Doing good, Rob. Thanks for having me. Love listening to you and the crew. So happy to be joining you.
It's always good when you guys are winning, right? It's always better when you're sitting there at 9-0.
Absolutely.
So the 9-0 record, right? I do want to talk about. I don't want to go too much into it, but it's not just fluff that you guys are beating, right? There are some undefeated teams that maybe haven't played the most difficult non-conference schedules. You guys beat Utah. You guys beat St. Bonaventure. By the way, that's their only loss of the season. You guys beat North Texas. You guys got Wyoming in the first game of the Mountain West season. And the thing that I'm curious about is what was you taking over a new program, new staff. You got 8 new guys coming into the program. How were you able to make this work so quickly? Like where did this connectivity come from?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Rob. I think this is my third time doing this. Obviously, left West Virginia for Fairmont State, left Fairmont State for Youngstown, and now here at Utah State. So I think you get better with time. But I think it starts and ends with our returning players. I had 5 unbelievable kids return. They've really bought into how we want to play. And then, I think in the portal world, a lot of coaches miss on guys. We kind of really recruit to our system, how we want to play on both sides of the ball. And I got an unbelievable staff. I think our staff, we got a couple guys that are future head coaches. And it's been one of the most enjoyable experiences of my coaching career. I love living in Utah. I love our fan base. And it's a really neat place. They just love basketball. So all things are, kind of aligned here, and it's been a good experience so far.
Yeah, I wanted to. We'll get back to the roster for a second. I do want to ask you about moving to Utah because you grew up in Ohio, right? You went to school. You played for Raleigh Massimino at Cleveland State for a couple years. You were a student assistant for Bob Huggins at Cincinnati, right? Yeah, there's the theme here. Then you go to Walsh. Then you go to West Virginia. Then you go to Fairmont. Then you go to Youngstown. Everything's kind of like right in that same little pocket of the country. And now you're living out in Utah. Have you gotten adjusted to the altitude yet? Like, is this new, a new life, new me, new Jerrod Calhoun?
You know what, Rob, you've been out here, so I think you understand, the passion that our fan base has. I'm surrounded by beautiful mountains. People have been unbelievable. I have 3 little kids. So like I said, our players, the returning players, were so good, Rob, on the official visits when we had guys coming in. A lot of times when you take over a program, you don't have that continuity. I thought getting Mason back, getting Ian back, getting Carson back, getting these guys back. Jackson Smith has been unbelievable. He's a walk-on my team that I absolutely love. There's just so many good pieces that were in place. These guys are used to winning. We don't really talk about the end results. We talk about the process daily and just try to win the day. I think so many young people are worried about their future. We just worry about today. And if we worry about today, tomorrow will take care of itself. So it's been really, really good. I love it out here. There's a lot of talent, Rob, as you've seen. We've got some unbelievable high schools and prep schools that are going into place out here. So we're going to be able to continue to attract top talent to Logan.
Yeah, I was gonna say the if you're giving advice to other coaches on what jobs to take, go find the one where you have 2 all-conference guys that are coming back, like Ian and Mason. That always helps a little bit, right?
It definitely helps. These 2 kids have played unbelievable. I think they're playing as good as anybody in the country. The guys, our players really complement each other, Rob, right? I think so many teams don't complement each other, right? We try to really talk about efficiency more than total points, right? Are you playing the game the right way? Is your assist to turnover where it needs to be? If you look at Ian Martinez right now, he's got 30 assists and 12 turnovers. How many teams in the country can say they're one of their best players on their team is a 3-to-1 assist guy? So we just try to teach them how to play the right way. Learn a lot of that from Joe Mazzulla, one of my former assistants. And I think, it's really helped this team to buy into we over me, and we got to continue it.
That's got to be one of the best flexes that you have on the recruiting trail, right? Yeah, you see that guy that just won the NBA championship. He used to work for me.
And not only worked for me, I was the best man in his wedding. And Coach Paul on my staff is his son Manny's godfather. So, those relationships go back 20 years. Him as a player, and it's a pretty special relationship.
So I wanted to ask you about Mason. We had him on the podcast. I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. And one, he's awesome, an awesome kid. Really enjoyed talking to him. There's a lot more than just basketball when it comes to who he is as a human being. But three coaches in 3 years, right? How has he kind of learned to roll with the punches here? Like how has that adjustment been for him, and how has he helped some of these other guys that are maybe in a spot where it's you got a new staff, new location, new everything?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Rob, that's a great point. How many programs have had the number of coaches in and out of Logan, Utah, right? So hopefully here in the near future, we get some continuity, keep this staff in place for a long, long time. I think we have great momentum heading into the Pac-12. But I think what Mason's done, instead of dwelling on having so many coaches, he's learned from every coach. He and I have talked about this. I've asked him about Ryan Odom, Craig Smith, Danny Sprinkle, how did they run the program here in Logan? And, you learn a lot from your players. I think that's the biggest thing now, Rob, is you have to empower players. This kid brings it every day. His level of intensity, he's just a winner. And you just cannot, stress enough when you have winning players, guys that try to win every drill and practice. It really resonates with all of our guys. The Dexter Econos, if you look at what Dexter's done since he's come into our program, he's on career highs right now. He's shooting 44% from three. He's 2-to-1 assist to turnover. He's making the right play. And Mason kind of rubs on, all these guys. And the closest guy I can compare him to is a Deshaun Butler or a Joe Mazzulla. He just beats every day.
Ian Martinez. He had a really good year last year, and I think it is fair to say that he is better than he was a year ago. He's taken a step forward, efficiency's better, scoring numbers are up. What has kind of led to that step that he has taken this season?
I think he really takes to coaching, Rob. Each guy, we come up with a plan, and we do a lot of different meetings. I know Eric Fawcett really well. He works directly with our program, and just really trying to get guys better. I think our assistants do a tremendous job daily. We put our players in a lot of decision making throughout practice. We call them read drills, whether that's a single side tag, double side tag, drop coverage, hedge, ice, you name it. Ian can play at all three phases, right? He can get to the free throw line. He can shoot threes. He can shoot the mid range. There's not many players that can do that while making good decisions. And I think he's one of the best out there. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the country right now, based on what he's done after 9 games.
The one thing that I think is really interesting about the way that this team has kind of been built out is so I'm going to rewind a little bit. I did like an NBA alt stream for the league with John Fanta and Terrence Oglesby a couple weeks ago, and we did a Celtics game, and I watched a whole bunch of Celtics film to get ready for it. And one of the things that kind of really stood out to me was that uh, the offense that Joe's run, like he's not reinventing the wheel with it. He's like, we're going to get some ball screens put together. I have these two guys that you can't stop. We're going to get them in an advantageous matchup, and then we're going to let them go. And it kind of feels like you're doing something similar. Like the Mountain West version of the Celtics, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown might be Mason and Ian, right? It feels like there's some similarities to what you're doing with this team and with this roster. Have you kind of stolen some stuff from them?
Well, Rob, it's a great point. I mean, I think every team that we play presents different challenges. So I think it's our job as coaches going into the scout. How can we help create advantages? How can we help our guys take high percentage shots? The easiest shot in basketball is a transition shot, right? So our pace of play, we want it to be really good. I think Eric Houtman and Taurus Robinson have done a tremendous job with our defense. We're a balanced team. We're top 50 in offense. We're top 70 in defense. We want to be top 30, top 40 in both. So I think both sides of the ball have to go well with one another. But we're bringing Mason off a ton of wide pin downs. We're bringing ing off pin downs into ball screens. It's certainly stuff that a lot of the NBA teams do. And we've got, other guys that I think are still going to give us much more. Drake Allen has shown the ability to play at a high level. Alban Gatoretsky, I think, is going to really pick it up. Tucker Anderson and Dayton Albury, those are guys that I think still are going to play much better basketball. So I think it's where we're at now. We're happy with to be 9-0, but I think this ceiling for this team is really high.
When it comes to some of those other names that you just mentioned, right? Like how important is it them for them to kind of buy into the role that they're being asked to play, right? Like you have two guys that you kind of know are going to get the majority of the shots and the majority of the points, and that's just kind of how it works in basketball, right? But these other guys seem like they've really bought into this idea where, all right, I'm going to set the table for him, or I got to be the guy that sets the screen to get him open, or if I set this screen and I roll the bucket, I'm going to get a layup at the rim, or I got to be the defensive guy to kind of anchor everything we do.
I think that's a tremendous point. I think there's so many teams that aren't willing to do that. You look at Carson Templin, the jump he's made from freshman to sophomore year. I think he played in 23, 24 games last year. Right now, he's top four in scoring. So I think when you spend a lot of time with guys, you really teach them how to play offense, screening angles, when to pick and pop, when to roll, how to create second side ball screens. And then you have kids that are really putting the team over themselves. Good things will happen to those guys. And Carson Templin's a prime example of that. I think we go into every game, Rob. I say all the time to our guys, we're up two, we're up four, just based on our connectivity, based on our communication, based on putting the team over themselves. Certainly, we've got guys sometimes that are in a funk, but for the most part, the guys that have come back, those three guys, Carson Templin, Isaac Johnson's another guy that I think is just going to get better and better in our system. I mean, he's 7 foot, he can shoot threes. Those guys really understand what it takes to win. And that's why I love this job and I love where we're at right now.
Yeah, you just mentioned the four guys that you have coming back. All of them have played really important roles for you. And was there I gotta imagine there's some value when you are a new staff taking over a program, having players that have been there that can kind of give you a core that can say, hey, this is how we do it at Utah State. Doesn't matter who the coach is, this is what our culture is, this is how we play. This is Utah State basketball.
So, Rob, a lot of times I think the coaches, get a lot of credit, which, I guess rightfully so. But the reality of it is the continuity at Utah State year in and year out. This, to me, is a players-led program. We have 17 former players living here in Logan. It's a brotherhood, right? It's a family atmosphere here in Logan. Sam Merrill texts me all the time. He watches our games. It's just a unique spot to be in. And I think, the legacy is our players. Our players, for the past 30 years, whether they're playing overseas, now we have guys in the NBA. There's a care factor, and there's an obligation and an expectation to win games in Logan. And, it's something I strived for. It's something I wanted to be a part of. And now getting to be one of the leaders, not, the only leader, but, part of a brotherhood. It's a pretty special place to hear from these guys. And I think, the 5 returning players took that to heart when we got here. They could have jumped in the portal and went to other places, but they enjoy playing here in Logan.
Yeah, the guy I always remember that I think of the first time that I was out there at Utah State was when Stu Moore was still there. It was 2011, back in the Wild Bill days. I don't know if you've met or seen the Wild Bill videos from back in the day, but it was Ty Wesley. He was the
Yeah.
star. That was the guy that I
Yeah,
always.
he's living over here in Idaho. We have a mentorship, Rob. He's part of our mentorship program for our players. Each guy has 13 mentors, and he's one of our mentors this year.
Did you, before you got the job, did you know about that at Utah State? Because I do kind of feel like it's, um, I said this to Mason, like the state of Utah, the amount of basketball talent and the way that the people in the state love this sport is something that I don't think gets recognized enough nationally. I said it's Indiana with mountains,
I, I
mountains.
I totally agree, Rob. I think for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the start time of our games back on the East Coast, but how many programs have a student section like the Herd, right? Where when, there's an hour and 15 minutes before the game, it doesn't matter who we're playing, they're running in. And I learned that a long time at Cincinnati. A long time ago, Coach Huggins, we were playing at Akron. It was the first year I was there. And he said there'll be 13,000 fans. And I said, oh, come on, Hugs. And he said, they're here to see the Bearcats. Well, it's the same way here. They're here to see the Aggies. It doesn't matter who we play. They're here to see our guys. So I think it's a hidden gem. I think it's a great place to live, great players. And I think our administration has taken the next step. Going into the Pac-12 is an exciting time, and we got to continue to advance in all facets of the game, every area of the game, right? Whether it's NIL, whether it's scheduling, everything. We got to stay on par with the rest of these teams moving forward.
All right, so you are an Ohio guy living in the mountains now. Like, what's the most Utah thing that you've kind of gotten into? Are you a big hiker now? Have you started fly fishing? Like, what are you doing out here to kind of make yourself one of the people here in Utah?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I try to do is really get acclimated with the area. Last night I went to a girls basketball game. We have a girl here named Emily Skinner. She's top 10 in the country. She's
Mhm.
going to Duke. I just try to get involved in different activities. Each week I try to look and see, is there a high school game? But then also having three kids, I'm very, very involved in the community. I've met so many people, but yeah, my wife and I have been on a few hikes. I think that's something we're going to do in the spring. We have so many national parks that I haven't been able to get to, but I've been to Park City. Would highly encourage you, Rob, to spend time in Park City and then also Bear Lake. But I think it's one of the prettiest places to live in the country.
Yeah, we drove through there last summer. We have friends that live in Denver and Salt Lake City, and what we do is we fly into Denver. You drive up through, I forget what that highway is, but just along the mountains, and we go and spend like a week in Yellowstone. So one day when I can afford to stop working, I'm going to be moving out there with you. So make sure you find me a good spot, a good house, like a good town. I'm going to be picking your brain on where I'm moving to.
Let's do it, man. Let's get you guys to a game out here again this year.
Yeah, and by that time I might be looking like Wild Bill, and if that happens, I'm going to be sitting front row of your student section doing the "I believe that we will win" chant.
I love it. I love it. Well,
Coach,
thanks for having me, Rob. I can't tell you how many times I told Jeff this at Media Day. I listen to you guys at night, even on during your live segments. I'm up, scouring the internet and listen to you guys quite a bit. So I appreciate all the coverage.
well, I appreciate that, man, and you got to get yourself a big win here so we can get you on the big show. We get you on after dark. I need a buzzer beater or something. All
All
right.
right.